Good evening and welcome to the Ventura County Master Gardener Speaker Series. This talk is one of a series of virtual talks we have this fall. We also have some in-person talks. Please check out our website. I have put the information for our website in the chat box so you can take a picture of it with your phone or you can copy it onto your computer. Today's presentation, Landscaping for Fire Protection, will be about an hour with time for questions after, but we ask that everybody stay muted due to the number of the people on the call. If you have a question, please use the chat box at the bottom of your screen and we'll get to as many as possible. Our speaker today is Dani Brusius. She is a sustainable landscape expert with training in land firescaping, arboriculture, plant biology, soils, garden pests, and diseases. In 2005, Dani graduated from the Master Gardener program and has over a decade of training and community service at our helpline desk. She specializes in reducing gardening inputs for the lazy gardener with a focus on microclimates and hydrozoning for water savings. Today, she will show us that you may be able to protect your home and your neighborhood with a few changes to your landscape. Learn about ways to increase the chances for your home and landscape to survive in the event of a wildfire. Again, please check out our website and our Facebook page, also for information and registration for other classes. We also have the email address for our Master Gardener helpline. We will answer your gardening questions free of charge. Again, everybody please stay muted and use the chat box for any questions. And now I turn it over to Dani.
Hi, thank you for showing up. This is perfect timing for landscaping for fire. As you know, it's Santa Ana season coming up, so we all need to be extra careful with what we do and how we work our landscapes. So before I get started, I'm going to tell you to check your trees. We have this insect that transmits a disease that is a fatal disease, and it's for your citrus trees. So we have a really big industry here in Ventura County for citrus, and we could lose the entire industry, not counting on all the backyard trees that you have. So what we need to do is it's recommended to check your trees at least once a month. I'm saying if you're out there every once a week, check them every week. You might need a magnifying glass or a hand lens to find these guys, but we really need to take control of it. So what is the insect? The insect is the Asian citrus psyllid. We call him the ACP. This is the guy right here. You're probably not going to see him unless you have a big infestation like this. They tend to run to the back when you look at them. Not that they're smart, but maybe they are. I don't know. But what you're going to look for on your trees is this little curly, waxy stuff. These are the only insects that do this. It's going to be on the tender new shoots of your trees. So look in between where the new leaves are coming up. If you get the disease, this is what it looks like. Now, if this was from like a if you didn't have enough fertilizer or whatever, the leaves would be the same on both sides. And here you see it's got a blotched look. Also, the fruit is sometimes misshapen, and sometimes it doesn't ripen all the way. It'll be halfway green. And also check for ants, because ants like to farm these guys. This is the immature. This is they look like little Pikachus. This is the immature. These are the guys you're going to see with this little curly stuff. If you have ants going up your tree, look to see where they're going, because they like to farm these guys for the honeydew. Also, control the ants, and controlling the ants can sometimes help control the disease. So we have a handout, but since we're doing this online, since we're doing this on Zoom, we can't give you the handouts. This is what it looks like. You can go in here and it tells you, it tells you what to do. It tells you what to use. It tells you who to call. And there's also a map there that's really cool. You can put in your address and you can see where they have found the insects and where they have found the disease. If you do get the disease on your tree, you need to remove those trees because the insects are just going to spread it to other places in the area. Now, if you look in this middle picture, you see these guys. These were the immature ACPs, and they have little holes in them, and that's because they've been parasitized by an insect that has been released. So on this map, you can even see where they have released the good guys to try and control. And it's not an answer, but it will help. So on to fire landscape. So why am I here? Okay, I moved to a wildland interface area in 2001. And the first time we had a fire was 2005. I am terrified of fires. I'm not an expert in fire safety, but this has made me learn to go ahead and research. I am a researcher, so I've researched everything I can find out about fires. The first fire we had was in 2005, and the wind stopped. So we've got a different scenario now because we have climate change, and the winds are stronger, the winds are longer. And this is actually what the 2005 fire stopped because the wind stopped and they were able to save the neighborhood. It wasn't the same with the Woolsey fire. So this is actually what the fire looked like from my front yard. And this is what Sky and I gave us from the air, what the fire was about. So how many wildfires does California have each year? Okay, there's 8,000 fires and they're now becoming more frequent, more than 8,000 fires. So as of September 6th, which is when I put this together, there were 7,139 fires. Okay, know that when I started this early on September 6th, there were fewer fires than that. And then afterwards, I had to go and update it because that's how many fires we're having. There were over 2 million acres burned and 3,100, over 3,000 structures lost and 1 death. And any death isn't good, but it kind of shows that we're finally learning that when they say evacuate, we really need to evacuate. So do you live in a WUI? Okay, I'm going to use that word WUI a lot. WUI is a wildland urban interface, and this is what it looks like. Okay, we're all familiar with this, where the suburban and the natural vegetation comes together. And so if you live in a WUI, it's not a question if a fire will occur, but when. So there's different zones within the WUI that are classified by severity. Now, here's a map from CAL FIRE, and it shows the fire severity, and all this area is high fire, and this area is very high fire. And this is probably kind of like the maps that your insurance companies are going to use too, because the insurance companies they're gonna want to drop you if you're in one of these high fire areas. If you want to know your exact address of your house, what the fire hazard is, UCLA's put together a site, an interactive map, where you can actually go in and punch in your address, and you don't have to remember this big long address here. It's you can usually just put it in a search engine, UCLA fire hazard map, and it will come up. So I did Oak Park. And here we have in Oak Park it's almost all very high. And and like I said, these are the maps that the insurance companies are going to use to go by. So here's something new. On or after July 1st, when you sell your property, you're going to have a defensible space inspection for your house. Okay, so this is the fire hazard severity zone from this address down here, the fire.ca.gov. The DS is defensible space. It's going to tell you, the best is having no plants around your house, but it's going to give you ideas of what the lower risk and the higher risk is. And there's actually an assessment in there that you can use, that you can go to, that you can go and put in your information and see how fire safe your house really is. So how can your landscape make a difference? Okay, you're going to see this picture a lot. Defensible space is your responsibility. It's nobody else's responsibility. You're the one that's going to be responsible. So what is the defensible space? So California law requires that homeowners in wildfire prone areas, and that's most of us, need to create 100 feet of defensible space around their dwellings. Now, if you live in like most suburban neighborhoods, you don't have 100 feet from your house. You're just mostly responsible for what is around your house. But if you have an HOA, and I don't think that there's a single tract in Agora that doesn't have an HOA. So there's a lot of HOAs. They're the ones that are responsible for the rest, for open spaces and places like that. So this area is broken down into zones. So what I'm calling this is the new zero zone. So it's a 5-foot buffer immediately surrounding your home. This is something that's fairly new. They first talked about the 30 feet from your home, and now they want the 5 feet around your home completely devoid of any plants or anything else that can burn. So also to note, a 4-foot cleared path around your house will make it easier for firefighters to navigate. So if you have the opportunity to have gates on both sides of your house, that's wonderful, because that will let the firefighters, if you watch TV, watch the news, when you see the firefighters out there, they're going all the way around the house. And here's a picture of, this is right next to open space, and they had gates on both sides, but that's where they decided to put their storage. And that's something you don't want to do. So in the 5-foot non-combustible zone, you need to move ladders, firewood, furniture, everything that's absent during, everything that should be absent during fire season. And now fire season is like almost all year round. So here's what I did wrong. And you will see a lot of things of what I did wrong. It used to be, I talk about water saving. And we used to tell people that you put around under the eaves and next to the house is where you're going to put your plants that need the most water, but you don't want to do that anymore. You don't want any plants. You don't want anything climbing up the house, and you don't want anything in this area. So here, where do you suppose this fire started? Okay, this kind of gives you an idea. This was the house across the street. And actually they were lucky it only burned the garage, but this is where the fire started. And this wasn't a big like bushes or anything like that. And if you can see, there's this little volunteer palm tree. So I'm going to blame that guy. I don't know if it was that guy, but I'm going to blame that guy. Yeah. Okay, so hardscape, we're used to having all the soft stuff around our houses and for the look, but we need to start working with non-combustible. So here's a house that burned in the Thomas fire. And when they rebuilt, this is how they redid it. And I know a lot of people don't like this look, but this might be the difference between saving your house. So know that any plant can burn under the right conditions. So what we have here is okay, so you didn't hear the evacuation orders and you're asleep and you wake up and everything's on fire. You're not getting out of your front door. Oh, I'll go out the garage. Well, you've got plants growing up around the garage. That's not going to happen. And this is a little, I don't know if you can see this picture here. If you close the picture of me, there's actually a house back there. And this is also important for the fire department because the fire department is going to want to see your house. And if you've got this going on in front of your house, and there are pines here and there are plants that are very flammable, it's not going to help your house. So as far as fire damage, okay, so is this fire damage? Now, this is a plant that is pretty fire safe. It's a camellia and it's by my front door. And this is not from a fire. This happened because the temperature it was cool. And then it was a couple of years ago, and then it just got really hot all of a sudden, and the plant wasn't able to acclimate. And this is what happened. This wasn't fire. This was just warm. This is other heat damage around here. And this is at one of the local parks. And if you look here, this is a native plant, and the native plant seems to be doing fine. So zone 1, okay, so we did the 0 zone. Zone 1 is the area that extends 30 feet from the building structures, decks, etc. And for most people that live in a suburban area, that's probably your whole yard. Now in San Diego County, zone 1 is 50 feet. I guess they have bigger yards. So here's that picture again, zone 1, zone 2. So in zone 1, you want to remove all dead vegetation, remove dry leaves from the roof, gutters, and yard. So here's some local Oak Park pictures of, you've got to get rid of this stuff if it's on your roof. And here, if your gutters look like this, these are actually weeds growing out of the gutter. It might be time to clean them. So keep your plants healthy and remove any dead wood. If you see here on this tree, this is all dead wood. This is all kindling. If your tree looks like this, it probably has more issues, and it's probably a better idea to remove it. So in zone 1, the firebrands like to find a place to rest and expand. So things that you might not think about. Okay, so fill seams and gaps around your home. Paint and repair flaking areas, because you don't think of flaking paint, but that's where firebrands might land. Also cobwebs. Cobwebs is a place where they can land and rest and wait to expand. So also screening your vents. You should screen all your vents 1/8 or 1/16 wire mesh. So here's, this is a new picture that I have. This was actually from Tahoe. And this is a modest home, but some insurance companies will actually send people out to wrap your house. And we don't really want it to get this far where everybody has to have their house wrapped when the fire's coming. So in zone 1, keep the branches at least 10 feet from other trees. Remove any branches that hang over the roof, and remove branches that are within 10 feet of the chimney. So here we have somebody's orange tree, somebody's citrus tree. And you might think that, well, I don't use my fireplace, so the chimney's not a problem, but you know, your neighbors might want to use their fireplace. So here's another thing that I did wrong. You'll see a lot of things I did wrong. So you're going to want to remove branches that hang over the roof. This tree wasn't a problem with the fireplace, because I do not use my fireplace to burn wood. But the tree was over 30 years old, and it was getting to a point where it was encroaching on the roof. And instead of trying to keep it cut back all the time, I decided to remove it. So what happens when you remove a tree that's been there for 30 years? Okay, everything else around it is gonna get hurt. I mean, going to, everything around it is going to notice the difference. You know, they're going to say, hey, we were shaded and now we're not shaded. So what I did was I found this triangle shade in the garage and I went and put it up against the house to shade these plants over here. And so I removed a tree that was close to the roof, and now I replaced it with something that will burn, that was actually attached to the roof. So don't do, and also this little thing right here, this little, I don't know what you call those. That in the meantime, I didn't remove it, but I have painted it because painted wood is a lot more fire resistant than raw wood. So remove or prune any plants that are near windows. Windows are the area that's gonna break out. And your double pane and triple pane windows, those are better than single pane windows. But if it gets hot enough, that's gonna blast out. Relocate any wood piles to zone 2. So if you have the room, you have wood piles, keep them 30 feet away from the house and create separation between items that may catch fire. So here we have another house, and and I'm sorry if anybody's house is in these pictures. I really don't mean to get on you or anything, but this is where I walk and this is what I see. So this isn't a good idea. These hedges against the window, and also burglars like it when your windows are covered from the outside too. So that's a double there. So here we have these Italian cypress are famous for being super flammable. And when they get old, they get a lot of stuff in them. And so Italian cypress shouldn't be in your landscape anyway, but especially if they're old. And like this one has all kinds of vines and stuff growing up it, and it's got trees, and so if this goes up, all of this other stuff's gonna go up too. And if you're thinking of planting new things, you don't wanna plant the giant tree right in front of your house. Okay, so size does matter. So I don't know when we started planting giant trees in front of our houses, but they should be out of the 30-foot zone. So this tree could produce a lot of fuel that's going to be hard to extinguish. And this tree is way bigger than this house. Also, this is for all of you that want to plant redwoods. It's called a coast redwood for a reason. If you don't live by the coast, don't plant it because they're just really hard. This one right here, this one's pretty new and this one's really healthy, but when they get older, they can't handle the heat and the dry that we have in the inland areas. As you see here, this one, now these have since been removed. But this on the south facing side, this tree is having issues because of the heat and the sun. The one over here isn't too bad because it's being shaded. But if you take this tree out, this one's going to do the same thing. So radiant heat, this is where the heat from adjacent structures can start a fire 20 to 30 feet away. This is just the heat. We're not talking firebrands or anything. So, you know, just because we need to work together as a community and everybody needs to, you know, if one house catches on fire and it's just the radiant heat, the whole block can go down. And yes, do we like this picture? So consider islands and breaks in your landscape design, and you want to do those separated by non-flammable materials. So here's a rock stream bed, and here's the little island effect. And this actually, since I took this picture, has grown in a lot more, and it actually looks really cool. So also, this has since been taken out too, which is a plus. I know a lot of people are kind of getting on board with taking things out. not only is all this, especially with the palm tree back there, a fire hazard, but we live in an area where we have a lot of critters, so you don't know what's living in there. So older plants and hedges. People, they are not your children, they are plants. You know, feel free to get rid of them if they are, if they're infringing on your fire safety. So this was a hedge that I had. 7 years is usually the limit for hedges before they start getting really, really woody on the inside. This is the hedge. This was a shrub that I had for about 7 years, and it was right next to the house. So I decided, okay, that it needs to go. This is what the inside looked like. It wasn't as bad as I thought, but there's a lot of leaf litter and there's a lot of dry twigs that are going to burn for a while. So this was it afterwards. And there was even a little plant back there that I didn't know that I had. So here on hedges, you might want, and nobody can blame you for needing hedges for privacy. If you have hedges that are old, that are flammable, put them on a 3-year basis. You can remove one. You can remove every third hedge every year for 3 years, and you'll have a new hedge, and it won't be all that dry, twiggy stuff on the inside. So on to zone 2. So this is the area that extends 100 feet out from your buildings. And here's this picture again. So in zone 2, you want to cut or mow annual grasses to maximum height of 4 inches. You want to create horizontal spacing between shrubs and trees. So here we had, this is right after the Woolsey fire. We had 2 trees here that were actually touching each other. So they weren't the 10 feet. So what did we do? We planted another tree right in between them. And we had rains after the Woolsey fire, and this is what happened. Here you've got all of this vine stuff is growing up here, this middle tree, and it's growing into the other trees. But if you see, these are oak trees. These are the evergreen oak trees. I'm not sure what kind they are. They could be holly oak. They could be they could be a mixture of different kinds of oaks. But anyway, they did really well after the fire. So here, where we tell you to space trees, we don't want you to go planting a row of trees right away because it's going to save you from the fire. But a little bit, so far what the fire department has learned that these trees might have helped filter out some of the firebrands from the fire. So until there's more research on this, you really don't want to go out and plant a whole row of oak trees. But if you look at the landscape here, it's all kept low, and the shrubs are kept low away from the tops of the trees. So you're not going to have the ladder effect. So you're going to remove fallen leaves, needles, twigs, bark, cones, small branches. They may be permitted to a depth of 3 inches, and that's because trees like our native oak trees, the ones that are the deciduous ones, the Quercus lobata, the ones with the lobe leaves, those do a lot better. They're a lot healthier when they have a duff layer. So you want to keep your plants, that's the big thing, is keeping out the dead stuff and keeping your plants healthy. So you need to create vertical spacing between the grass, the shrubs, and the trees. Okay, so this is what happens when you don't have that spacing. You've got the grass that catches on fire, catches the shrub on fire, and then catches the tree on fire. So here's something, if this is your HOA, get on these people. This is, I walk past this every day and it just infuriates me. You've got a lot of this ground cover is flammable ground cover, and you can't tell the trees from the vines. Here's a pine tree, which is very flammable, and it's got things growing up on it. So vertical spacing. So there's a formula for your vertical spacing. 6 feet minimum clearance, from the ground to where your canopy starts on your trees. And if you want to include shrubs too, so a 5-foot shrub would require 15-foot clearance between the tops. So you want 3 times the height of the shrub is the clearance you want between the shrub and the tree if you want these together. So here we have, this is from CAL FIRE also. The 6-foot minimum clearance, here's the fire ladder effect. And this looks kind of silly if you're going to have the 3 times there, but that's what it's going to look like. So on horizontal spacing, so slopes matter a lot. For every 10% increase in the slope, the length of your flame is going to double. So if you've got a 40% slope behind your house, that flame is going to be huge. Also, uphill, if you live on the top of a hill, fire moves 16 times faster uphill than it does on flat ground. So to figure out your slope, you're going to take your rise, your height of the slope, against the run of the slope, which is the length, and times it times 100%. So mild slopes, trees, you've got to keep the canopies 10 feet apart. Shrubs, 2 times the height of the shrub. So if you've got a 3-foot shrub, it's going to be 6 feet between shrubs. So moderate slopes is going to be 20 feet. You're going to double that. And double that for the shrubs. And steep slopes, you're going to want 30 feet between your trees. And I can tell you, I have a steep slope behind my house and the trees are not 30 feet apart. Shrubs 6 times. So plants to avoid. Okay, so it's not so much, there's some plants that are worse than other plants. There's plants to avoid, but like I said earlier, the big difference is keeping your plants healthy, keeping the dead wood and stuff like that out of it. So what you're going to avoid are pines, firs, cypress. Like I said, there was a time when the cypress was going through the valley. People were just green cypresses. They were catching them on fire just to watch them burn like giant torches. Eucalyptus, junipers, palms, Japanese honeysuckle. That's a ground cover that's not only has an understory, but it also has also the stuff inside of it burns easily too, the saps, and some ornamental grasses. So know that native plants are essential for ecosystem components and provide habitat for the natives, and invasive species choke out the native plants and habitats. So plants to avoid, okay, the herbaceous broadleaf plants like mustard and European thistle, that's like the purple thistle that you see. They go dormant at the beginning of the summer, and they're very flammable. So this was after the rains, after the Woolsey fire. And note this chain link fence here. This is a lot of area, and these mustard plants are all 6-7 feet tall. A month later, this is what it looked like. And this is all going to burn. This is all going to burn brightly. So on plants to avoid, your annual grasses, such as rye and oat, because they go dormant during the summer, and they leave out dry tissue. Perennial grasses, pampas grass, and Pennisetum cetaceum, the fountain grass. That's one that do I have pictures? Yeah, I have pictures. Okay, so this plant isn't going to be so much of a problem in a fire, but know that these plants, they spread easily and by the seed heads, and they go into our natural areas. And as an invasive plant is a plant that can grow on its own and causes harm. So if you're, so once this starts spreading, now people in my neighborhood said, oh, look at this plant that we have, that it's a native plant. It just grew here. We didn't plant it. Well, You know, it could be a native plant if it just grew there, but chances are it's an invasive plant. If the plant grows in the gutter, in the leaf litter, know that it's an invasive plant. And this is what happens. They congregate together in open spaces and kind of fill things out. This is at one of the parks. And also here's the pampas grass. If you remove your lawn, don't leave these big fire chute things that are going to be under your eaves. So know that invasive plants increase the frequency and intensity of fires. And also they're the first to recover. So here's an area that I walked by hundreds of times and I never knew it was there until the Woolsey fire came through. And afterwards, this is what it looks like. And what's coming back are all these invasive plants here. The Mexican feathergrass, and there's tree tobacco plants here. But know that the Mexican feathergrass was really popular for a while because people liked the way that it blew in the wind and stuff. And there's actually a group called Plant Right, and you can Google that. Plant Right, if you really like what a plant looks like, you can go to their site and they will give you replacements that give you the same look. So tamaracks, acacia, eucalyptus increase the intensity of fires in riparian areas. And you might think, well, we don't really have riparian areas, but we really do. We have creeks and we actually have rivers, but around here our creeks are usually come from the rain or lawns. So palm trees are a big issue because they get all this stuff that's going to be flying when you have a fire, and it's going to cause a lot of firebrands. And that's basically when I talked to the fire department guys, they basically said, yes, it was this tree that caught this house on fire, and the whole house was removed because it was a total loss. So for, if you want to have not just palm trees, but if you want to have trees, you need to take care of them. You need to get them pruned. You need to have the professionals in there. You need to have the arborists in there to take care of your trees. Here's somebody that he loves his palm trees and he keeps them trimmed up like this all the time. And that's great. Also, what I didn't realize when I took the picture is stuccoed eaves. If your eaves are not stuccoed, that is something to maybe consider because those wood eaves are a good place for a fire to start. So what plants should you choose? So know that no plant is fireproof. Fire-wise plant characteristics, the plants have tissues that contain more moisture. If they have sap that's gummy or sticky, they're fire prone. And so you want to choose plants with water-like sap. So plants that bend easy or plants with thick leaves, and this is Nugget. Deciduous trees, because during the fire season, they're going to lose their leaves. So that's less firebrands. Large leaf plants are better than small leaf plants because you get plants like the pepper plants. You're going to get a lot of firebrands off of a pepper plant when it burns. So use the crush test to see if the leaves have a strong odor when they're crushed. So what is this? That's rosemary. Rosemary is terrible. You can keep a rosemary plant for cooking and keep it trimmed up and stuff, and that's fine, but it's very flammable. This is what you get with rosemary plants. This part, the green part, is flammable, and then you get this understory of all this dry stuff that's going to keep a fire burning for a long time. And this is the same HOA as the picture on the slope that I took. So if this is your HOA, get on them. So lavender's okay, as long as you keep all the dead stuff. That's aromatic, but as long as you keep the dead stuff trimmed down and keep it water, it's okay. So fire-wise plants that provide less fuel by either being small or less litter. So native plants. So if you've gone over Canaan in the spring, there's these broom plants that are really nice and they smell good and it's really pretty. And then what happens after they bloom, they turn into tinder. And if you see a plant that's growing on a road cut, chances are it's an invasive plant, because that's where they like to. What they do is they start on the road cuts and then they move into the native areas. Ceanothus is a great plant. It's very fire resistant as long as you keep the dead leaves out. And another good point of the ceanothus is it doesn't like summer water. So this plant will go on with a lot of the landscapers don't plant them because they're not long-lived. But the reason they're not long-lived is because we've got these irrigation systems and we water them all summer, and they don't like to be watered during the summer. So during the summer, hose them off, hose the dead leaves off. So sustainable fire-safe gardens conserve water, limit harmful chemicals. They avoid invasive species, grow slowly. The slow plants, pick the slow growers. Those are the enduring plants in your yard. Those are the ones that are going to look better year after year, is the slow growers. They maintain high amounts of moisture in their leaves and stems. So what about mulch? There was a big issue with mulch that was still smoldering after the Woolsey fire, and people went in and right away they replaced it with rocks. So mulch is really important, and mulch is anything that you put on top of the soil. So it could be rocks, but if you're putting the rocks under your oak trees that like the duff layer, your trees aren't going to be as healthy as they could be. So it reduces water, cools soil temperature, reduces weeds. Weeds are really easy to pull through the mulch, controls erosion, prevents compaction, and it looks nice. So there was a study done between the University of California and Nevada Cooperative Extension, where this study is 10 years old now. So it's time, look for a newer study because things have changed. But what they did was they evaluated the mulches by flame height, rate of fire spread, and temperature. And they applied them all at 2 to 3 inches, except for the Tahoe chips. So I'm going to give you the worst to the best. So the worst was shredded rubber. Pine needles were the next. It was only second to the shredded rubber. And this is kind of sad because the gorilla hair, or the shredded western cedar, that's the stuff that stays on slopes. That ignited easy and had a fast rate of spread. So now for the ones that aren't quite as bad, medium pine bark nuggets, moderate flame height, low rate of spread. Tahoe chips. So as far as I could tell from all the research that I did on this, Tahoe chips is the stuff that comes directly from the chipper. So if you're having a tree removed and you keep the chip stuff on your yard, that's going to be the Tahoe chips. And they tested it regular, they tested it with fire retardant, and they only put them in a single layer. And the fire retardant only retarded the fire for 10 minutes. And then after 10 minutes, it was all the same. And then the best out of the combustible organic mulches was composted wood chips. And you could probably get that from one of the places that supplies soil and amendments and things like that. And so for me, compost is completely broken down, and this isn't completely broken down. So that's not compost in my book, but it kind of looks like what you get from the water district. The water district has a program where they give you what they call compost. So within 5 feet of the structure, no combustible mulches. So here's my yard again. So what do I have? I've got the giant shrub, I've got the wooden bench, and I've got the wood bark up to the house. So 5 to 30 feet from structures, this is what you're going to use: the bark chips, Tahoe chips, or the medium pine bark nuggets. And they can all transmit fire, so don't use them in a continuous manner. So here's what I'm doing with rocks, because the rocks aren't going to burn, and it'll just keep in this area. So here's where we go to, if we were in a classroom setting, we would have handed out paper to you and had you draw a little thing of your house and maybe what you could change. And since that's not happening here on Zoom, I will tell you what I've changed that gives your house a better chance of survival. So here's the original, and there's my my rosemary plant. So this is what I did. And also note that during there's things that are grown under here that I cut it back during the fire season, but it doesn't look this, I didn't put any weed block or anything under this. So it's kind of, you get kind of a meadowy look during the off season when it's wetter. Oh, and this right here, this is a deer grass, a Mullenbergia. The deer grass is very flammable, but what I do is comes September is I cut them all the way down to the ground, and they stay like that. And I think this picture was probably in February or March was when I did the rocks. So it always comes back nice. So make sure you have an emergency evacuation kit. All this stuff, you're going to need ID. You're going to need this little guy for all your inventory, clothes, flashlight, prescriptions, and don't forget the deodorant. That's what I forgot when we evacuated, because know that stress sweat is real. And have the crates ready and know that you might need help. And I thank my neighbor who helped me get the cat out from under the bed. I don't think the cat would have come out. I would have been able to get the cat out otherwise. So a little bit on away from the landscape, and the fire's coming now. What do you do? So this is a checklist that the readyforwildfire.org has 2 checklists. They have inside the house and outside the house. And I highlighted some things here that I did wrong, and know that, you know, our fire department's getting really good too. They're getting a lot better at fighting these fires. They have a lot, they've been through a lot more, and they know a lot more. So anyway, so shut windows, doors, and leave them unlocked, because you want the fire department to be able, if something's smoldering in your house, you want them to be able to get in. Everything was locked up tight in my house. Leave your lights on so they can see your house under smoky conditions. Okay, that was another thing. It was dark and it was locked. Connect garden hoses to outside water valves. If you have water buckets, place them around the house. Don't leave the sprinklers on or the water running. And that is something that, you know, that you don't want to lose the water pressure. And that was a lot in the Thomas fire, the Ondolano and the High Point houses that burned. A lot of them, the fire department was there, but they had no water, so they had to leave. Have a ladder available. So I have ladders on the side of the house, and they're locked up because I heard that burglars can use your ladders to break into the second story. Make sure you unlock them so there's a quick access. Seal attic and ground vents with pre-cut plywood. That's something you can do ahead of time. And check on neighbors and make sure that they're preparing to leave. This is an important one because because just because the lights are out and it looks like everybody's left now, now I was gone early. I was packed at 3 p.m. By the time the evacuation order came, I was already in Manhattan Beach. I was long gone. I am terrified of fires. So check on your neighbors to make sure they're prepared to leave, because my next door neighbor somehow slept through the whole evacuation and the noise and everything else. And when he woke up, the house across the street was on fire. So he ran over there the fire department wasn't here. He ran over there to help, and there was no hose. So he ran back and forth with a bucket until the fire department showed up, and he actually ended up having a heart attack. So he survived, but he had a heart attack. So no, check on your neighbors, especially your elderly neighbors like me. So when should you leave? Leave as soon as evacuation's recommended. You don't want to be caught in fire spot. Now, I left early. I left before the actual evacuation notice came out. And that's when they were moving the big equipment, up the streets. The fire department was doing that. So you don't want to hamper them and what they're doing. So don't wait to be ordered by authorities to leave. So if you leave early, it helps them keep everything clear. And I know a lot of people say, well, I want to be there and I want to have the hose to when the mulch catches on fire, or I want to be on my roof to hose it down. But know that the fire department, the first thing that they're going to do is save lives. So if you're up on the roof with a hose and they're worrying about getting you down and the neighbors' houses are burning, you're not going to be the most liked in the neighborhood. So should you water before you go? Yes and no. Keep your plants healthy, keep them watered, keep them irrigated. Well-irrigated plants have a better chance of fending off a fire, but if you haven't maintained an acceptable watering schedule, any water applied when the fire is coming is going to evaporate in the wind and the heat. Now, wetting down bark and mulch could be beneficial, but that also should be done ahead of time. Now we get notices when the Santa Anas are coming, and I think our first Santa Anas of the season are, if the weather reports are right, it's going to be on Monday and Tuesday. So I will be out watering down the mulch, daily to get it nice and soft. So it's not flaky and it doesn't catch on fire easy. So here's the house. Even with your best efforts, we had been looking for a house in Ventura, and my husband liked all the ones that were high up. And like I said, I'm terrified of fires. That's why I've done all this research. This was the house that he tried to talk me into because it was the brick house. The brick house won't burn, he said. Well, guess what? It just took one ember to get into the attic and the brick house did burn. And these right here, these were actually orange trees that aren't super flammable, but there was no surviving the heat from that fire from them. And I know that those were orange trees because I checked them for the ACP when we had visited the house, because that's another thing I do. So yeah, so know that, no matter how hard you try, sometimes it just it's unless you have one of those fire departments that'll come and wrap your house for you, the fire insurance. So if you have gardening questions, we have the free Master Gardener helpline. Usually we have, before COVID, we had the phone in, but now we're only working on email. You can send us an email with any of your plant problems or issues. Pictures, we like pictures. If you send pictures, send a picture of the problem, send a picture of the entire plant or the entire area, and a picture of around the ground might be helpful too. So that is it. And here's all the resources, which, like I said, these sites can be easily Googled. There's FEMA, there's CAL FIRE's the big one with all the lists and stuff like that, and UCANR has the fire blogs and things like that. And that is it.
We have a question, Dani. Dani?
Yes.
Oh, we have a question.
Okay.
What is the wrapping material in the Tahoe picture? The house that's wrapped.
I don't. It looks like aluminum foil. I don't know. This is something pretty new. I know. I had a hard time getting fire insurance, and I know I got canceled twice. And this was something that I will check into it. This is something that my new, very expensive fire insurance company offers, is to come out and either they spray something on your house, or, you know, if there's enough time, they'll wrap it. And but you don't always know. Like with the Woolsey fire, nobody really knew that fire was coming. It was they were reporting on a different fire. So that was pretty sudden when the fire actually, because everybody was looking somewhere else. So, and that's another thing. If you keep on social media to find, there's fire departments and places that was how I found out, was somebody that follows the scanners, and they actually knew that, this isn't the question, is it? They actually knew that that the fire was in Santa Susana, and I knew with the winds, Santa Susana was coming my way, but everybody else was focusing on the Hope fire, and I think that's why it took so many people, you know, by surprise, was because everybody was looking at a fire in the different place. So keep your options open. Like I said, there's a lot of good fire departments and stuff like that on social media. Don't go with the Facebook or the Nextdoor unless it's actually the fire department or the police department that's running those sites, because you'll get a lot of different opinions that might not be right.
Okay.
So,
So we have a question that I can probably answer about where to get a recording of this presentation that Dani just did. And this will have to be edited, and that takes about a week, and then it will be up on our Master Gardener of Ventura's YouTube channel. And that's, again, I had put all that information in the chat box at the very beginning, so you can look there, and you will be able to see this presentation. Are there any other questions? No? Okay, we are done for the evening. Thank you very much, Dani.
oh, thank you, and hopefully we will be doing these in person again pretty soon.
Yes.
And it always makes it easier when you can ask questions, or if you have any suggestions when I'm going along, and instead of me just sitting here looking at my laptop. So thank you very much. This is really important to me, is getting everybody together and helping to save our communities.
We have another question before you go. Where can you get the mesh that you talked about?
You know, somebody told me that they went to the local hardware store and they didn't have it. So, you know, I'm not sure. I will check around. If you want to check with the helpline, you want to send us an email on the helpline, I will check around and I will give the information there. But like I said, I don't know if this is a specialty item. I know there's people that will come out and they will do your vents for you for like have this special fire name or whatever. And it's very expensive. And to me, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal to go up there with a staple gun in your mesh and do it yourself.
Yeah, as long as you can find the mesh, right?
As long as you can find the mesh. Yeah, that was the first thing my neighbor asked me, because he did go to the hardware store and they had no idea.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you again, and good night, everybody.
thank you.